Hello, my name is Tenecia and I'm here to tell you the journey of the Fool. This is about the tarot cards and it helps me to remember the different symbology behind the cards. I learnt this story when I was a little girl and I am here to share it with you today. Now we have to remember with tarot that it is a medium, and like many others like stones, bones and runes, it is up to interpretation. The symbology is unique as each person's understanding of different symbols is also unique. So this is my interpretation and I hope you enjoy. Right, so the beginning obviously starts with the Fool. We're using the Rider-Waite Tarot deck today as the example. So the Fool starts his journey and he is innocent, fresh and ready for life. He embodies optimism and also are willing to take risks. You can see here that he has very little baggage and he has the sun on his back and the wind in his face, and he's holding a little white flower which also represents innocence. And he starts his journey with complete optimism and a fresh mind. So as the Fool travels along, he comes across the Magician. Now the Magician teaches the Fool about life's challenges and how to be equipped for them. You can see here that the Magician has all of the symbols out of the tarot. He has the cup, the sword, the pentacles, as well as the wands or rods. There is the infinity symbol above his head, which is representing, infinite wisdom and interconnectedness with the universe. The Magician also suggests, the power to do what you need to do, and also alchemy. Alchemy in life are bringing together energies and forces so as it can align with what you want to manifest in life. So this is the first lesson. The first person that the Fool meets on his journey is the Magician. The next person that the Fool comes across is the High Priestess. The High Priestess speaks to him about the balance of the inner and the outer. And you can see here that she is between these two pillars, between light and dark. She holds the Torah, which is representative of the secret wisdom or the ancient wisdom of life, and she teaches the Fool about the power to see and the spiritual aspects of life, the higher self. So she also has the symbology of the moon, which is representative of spirit, of connection, of connection to spirit, and also of the hidden mysteries. So she teaches him about the powers of the hidden world, as opposed to the Magician, who is teaching him about the powers of the more physical world. She highlights more so the powers of the spirit realm and teaches the Fool about those. The next person the Fool meets on his journey is the Empress. Now the Empress teaches the Fool about the feminine, nurturing, graceful, things that we traditionally associate with the female. Often the Empress is depicted as pregnant and she has a lot of female symbology around her, like the female symbol here, and the wheat, which leads back to different pagan fertility symbology that of the fields being pregnant with life and providing food, which then nurtures life itself. She is graceful, she's calm, she is balanced, and yes, she's very maternal. So she teaches the Fool about these aspects of life. The next character that the Fool comes across is the Emperor. Now, he teaches the Fool about the masculine side of things. He's very authentic, he is forthright and firm, and he has a lot of masculine symbols involved, the ram being strong and forceful, the scepter being quite phallic there, and he is in armor because he is ready for battle. It is very much about male power, about male strength and masculinity, also paternal energy, fathering, not so much the nurturing like the Empress, but more, guiding and directing. So the Fool comes across the Emperor and he learns about the masculine side of things. The next character that the Fool comes across is the Hierophant. Now, the Hierophant teaches the Fool about the outer parts of society, so organized religion, organized and traditional, the status quo, the way things are in the broader picture when it comes to, the larger community around him. But it really does speak of orthodox and tradition and things being passed down. You can see here there is like quite religious, a religious symbology going on here, and the Hierophant has these people that he's guiding, and he is doing so in a religious manner. This card is often in relation to the wider circle and the way that society is forming around the individual. So the Fool is introduced to the notion of the society around him and the traditions that he may or may not adhere to. So the next character the Fool comes across is the Lovers. So after the Fool learns about, the inner powers, the outer powers, the masculine, the feminine, the larger community, he then learns about, that special connection with somebody, the kindred spirit, the union of souls, and compatibility with, that special person. In this card, there is symbology of, it's the Adam and Eve type scenario, and it is suggests a very innocent love, and it is blessed by the angels, as we can see in the background there, because it is representative of a soul connection. So the Fool learns about what it is to love another. The next character that the Fool comes across is the Chariot. Now, the Chariot speaks of balance, balance moving forward, balance between, yourself and another, and it's called the Chariot even though there is no wheels. The wheels itself is the balance. The balance is what causes the momentum for forward motion to occur, and it is symbolized here by the sphinxes at the front, that is, black and white, light and dark, good and evil. So it's about balancing these energies within yourself, and finding that center, that inner balance for forward movement to occur. Now, after the Chariot, the Fool then meets Strength. Now, Strength teaches the Fool about, so he's mastered inner balance with the Chariot, and then the Strength teaches him about, that inner courage, inner confidence, conquering the beast and calming the beast. So this card also shares the symbology like the alchemist, the magician with the infinity symbol, and it is showing a higher wisdom, a higher faith, a higher understanding of, from which you can draw that courage and that strength. So this character teaches the fool about this aspect of himself. After the strength, the fool comes across the hermit. The hermit teaches the fool about inner guidance and self-reflection, and also about solitude. So the fool is introduced to the notion of trusting his inner light, and we can see the symbology here with the hermit holding his light, following that light, which is representative of one's inner light and the ability to trust that part of oneself and, do so in solitude, which is necessary sometimes. Now, after the fool meets the hermit, he then meets the Wheel of Fortune. Now, the Wheel of Fortune teaches the fool about the changing fortunes of life, about the shifts, the natural shifts and the seasons that occur. And we have the symbology here of different various beasts that depict different challenges or different strengths or different lessons that we can gain in life. Again, we have the Sphinx, which is representative of, a more mystical side of things. And this Wheel of Fortune is up in the sky because it's something that isn't necessarily tangible, but it is something that is inevitable. So the fool learns from the Wheel of Fortune about the changing cycles of life. So after the fool encounters the Wheel of Fortune, the fool then encounters justice. Now, justice is representative of the balancing of karma, of, and this can happen through apologies, or this can happen through repercussions. And it's also teaching the fool about perhaps the laws by which we must live. Now, whether they're moral laws, guided by an inner knowing, or whether it's external laws guided by, societal influences. We see here that there's symbology about balancing with these scales involved, and again the two pillars representing, the pillars of society, and the individual in the Justice card is holding the sword, which speaks of truth, speaking of truth with integrity. So this is an authority figure, and this is a lesson for the fool to learn about what it is to have repercussions from your actions. Following the Wheel of Fortune, it teaches him about the balancing of life, the balancing of karma, and the way that, a reaction will have a reaction. So after justice, the fool then comes across the Hanged Man. Now, having just learnt from the Justice card of every action has a reaction, well, this is about, the repercussions from one's actions. And although it is a hanged man, which makes us think of somebody who, is being punished, it is also about somebody who is seeing things from a new perspective, and they've had things turned around because they need to see things from a new perspective. And this is why he's only hanging from his foot here. He's not hanging from his neck. He's not in any pain. You can see he's quite serene. And it's about finding a new perspective, having that reflection from that new perspective, so as you can shift your ideas and evolve. So after the Hanged Man, the fool then comes across the Death card. Now, the death card symbology is quite interesting because it does, in fact, have, people who are looking like they're pretty dead down there, but it also has live people, and it usually always has this white flower. Now, if we remember, the fool himself has the flower in his hand, and this is representing, innocence. And in this scenario with the death, the reaper coming in on his white horse, death doesn't necessarily represent physical death. It is more so a letting go of, I always think of the leaves falling from the trees so as they can re-nourish, the roots of the tree for things to grow and grow bigger and grow better. And this is what this card is about. It's about letting things go so you can let things grow. And from the Hanged Man perspective, he's then shifted his attitudes to then let things go so as he can move forward in his life. And it isn't as serious as what it may seem. Death is just another part of life. And we must let things go to let things grow. So from the Death card, the Fool then comes across Temperance. Now, Temperance reminds the Fool about patience and about how things happen in good time and not always your time. It's about remembering that there is a higher power, and there is, there's sometimes the story's unfolding and you might not yet understand why. So this card reminds the Fool to be patient, and the symbology in this card is of water, which generally is of knowledge, and of the two cups pouring between the cups. So these two cups are filled with water, filled with knowledge, and there is an inner knowing that you wait things out and things will unfold as they need to. And the Temperance card reminds us of this. So after the Temperance card, the Fool then meets with the Devil. Again, this is severe, looks severe as far as the symbology goes, because the devil is, seen as something that's not that great, and that we have these two prisoners down here, but their chains around their neck are loose, and at any time they can actually remove themselves. So this card teaches the Fool about self-imposed restrictions and temptations. So often this can speak of unhealthy behaviors that do not lead us to towards fulfillment or towards harmony within ourselves. It's usually symbolic of addictions, or perhaps other influences, whether it be people or substances or patterns of behavior that are not positive, and that will bring about hellish like consequences just even in a turmoil. But with the two figures at the bottom there, we can see that they can release themselves from this, and it is something that is not permanent, it is temporary. So it reminds us to just check on our unhealthy behaviors. After the Devil, the Fool then encounters the Tower. Now, the Tower teaches the Fool about the inevitable shifts, the falling away of the obsolete, upheavals. Now, generally, the Tower, we can see it's a pretty serious scene here, and the symbology behind this is that, it's a bit chaotic as things fall away, but these people are not being burned or crushed. They are falling free from the debris. So it is about inevitable shifts and necessary changes and destruction, necessary turmoil that will lead to like the removal of the obsolete, things that are no longer serving you. So this is a very necessary part of life, and it isn't necessarily bad. It is just it can come abruptly. You know, the Tower, it's a card that sort of heralds an abrupt shift that may be quite unexpected. So the Tower teaches the Fool this. And after the Devil, it's sometimes necessary for these abrupt shifts to occur to release ourselves. Now, like all things, after the storm, there is the calm. And the Star card is a very positive card, and it reminds us of hope, of the glistening after the storm, the silver lining of new wishes. And so after the Tower, and the destruction, this card comes in and reminds us about, new beginnings and wishful thinking and, like new hopeful eyes, like seeing things with fresh eyes and seeing that there is like a silver lining to things. And again, we have the pouring of the water, which is generally symbolic of knowledge, and she's pouring it like into the calm pools and also into the rivers. So it's also, there's a suggestion here of versatility. And with the stars, these stars are all representative of hopeful opportunities. And so she is naked in the picture because it's about, that almost like rebirth, that innocence, that like vulnerability, that when you really when you open your heart into the universe to unfold, that is when your wishes are granted. It's through that vulnerability that you actually, are able to position yourself to receive. So the Star teaches the Fool these lessons. And then after the Star, there is the Moon. And now the Moon has a pathway leading up and into the hills, and it also has the water, which is representative, to me it represents knowledge. And it has the two towers here. We can see the two towers and then the moon, the face of the moon. So this symbology teaches the Fool about, potential shadow sides, the mystical sides of things, which reminds us back of the priestess that we met earlier, and also perhaps of hidden agendas. Now these two dogs here, they are different, but they are both howling at the same moon. So, the moon teaches about perhaps that there are differences and there's things that you don't yet understand. But this is okay. This is the nature of life, and this is the nature of learning, that things can be hidden and then revealed. But it can also be about, the spirit side of things, the connection to, the mystical parts of life and spirit. And after the Star, the moon then talks about the the realignment with those hidden forces. Where the Star is quite revealed, well, this is more hidden. So after the moon then comes the sun. Now this is fully revealed. This is fully in the light. This is a very joyful card. There is no underlying, cynicism or anything going on here. The sun is all about joy, new beginnings, and fresh ideas. And the child here is representative of pure innocence on the white horse, which is pure hope and new beginnings. And the sun and the sunflowers, that's all shiny and happy. So after getting to know some of the shadow sides through the lessons of the moon, the sun then appears and everything is bright and nothing is hidden and everything is in the light. And so the Fool then comes back into this space of celebrating life, of celebrating joy. So after the sun, the Fool then encounters judgment. Now this card can be seen as a little severe for the fact that the word judgment is, not necessarily always a positive. It's not necessarily a positive word. It's, but it doesn't align with what I feel the card represents. The card judgment is actually about connection with the higher self. So it's about sort of, balancing things within yourself, judging yourself. This card teaches about, the messages that you're getting from the angels. You see these people down here, they're all in they're actually in their coffins, but they're happy to be communing with the angels, because this is about the higher self and about your leveling things with yourself, about that inner voice that knows. So I suppose the word judgment would be more in relation to that conscience that you have that comes in and judges whether or not a situation is in line with your higher self. So after the Judgment card, we then meet the Fool. The Fool then meets the World card. The World represents the final turning of the fates. So it is teaching the Fool about how the world turns and everything changes. Much like the Fortune card of the shifting fortunes, the world just teaches about the inevitability of things will always change. This too shall pass. There will always be an end and a start to cycles, and this is unavoidable, but it's necessary. So this card teaches the Fool to enjoy things whilst they are joyful and endure things whilst they are not, because things will always change. Change is the only thing that is constant in this reality. So that is the Major Arcana Journey of the Fool. Just a brief little overview. It is very in-depth, going right into each card's symbology, but that was just a little kind of overview just to give you that little story of the journey of the Fool through the Major Arcana. Okay, so the next part of the Fool's journey is through the Minor Arcana. So I'm going to begin here with the Family of Swords. I liken the Family of Swords to lawyers and communicators. They are a fast-paced family, and they represent, direct, no nonsense. He's the king. He's pretty serious there. It's about, very head-driven, thought-based, intellectual. Can be quite harsh, and it relates to air signs of Libra, Gemini, and Aquarius. So the first person the Fool encounters is the Sword. Now, the Sword is representative of number 1, and is all about fast truth coming in. This is a message, a new beginning, perhaps naive, but this is very quick-paced, fast message of truth. So all ones can represent new messages coming in, and this one is very forthright in that it is the bringing of truth in some way, shape or form. So after the Ace, the Fool then comes across the Two of Swords. Now, the Two of Swords teaches the Fool about choices, and often with twos there is, an element of choice going on. And in this case, with the Swords, the Two of Swords, she's not seeing her options, and she's uncomfortable with the choices she has to make and the truths behind this choice. So this card teaches the Fool about uncomfortable choices. After the Two of Swords, the Fool then learns from the Three of Swords, and the Three of Swords teaches the Fool about, broken heart, the harsh feelings behind, truth spoken that perhaps you didn't want to hear. It can speak of betrayal as well, and so the Fool learns about what it is to feel, betrayed and broken-hearted. After the Three of Swords, the Fool then comes across the Four of Swords, and the Four of Swords teaches him about contemplation, about taking a moment out, about laying down your swords, perhaps not speaking any truths at all, and just taking that time out to ponder and reflect. So after the Four of Swords, the Fool then encounters the Five of Swords. Now often with fives, these can be conflict cards, and this one is more conflict about harsh words, perhaps backstabbing, and gossip. So we can see here that, the front figure has got his swords, and there's a couple over there in the background that have dropped theirs, and, these may be harsh truths that have been dropped that, isn't sitting well. So after the Five of Swords, the Fool then encounters the Six of Swords. So the Six of Swords is all about leaving a situation and taking your truth elsewhere. It can also be about journeying afar, travel of some sort, but it is about, having your truth and taking that with you and stepping out of a situation. So after the Six of Swords, there is then the Seven of Swords. So the Seven of Swords is generally, this is like the sneaky card. So this is about sneaking away. This can be about deceit, and this can be about theft. So unlike the Six, it's like, quite proudly, stepping out of a situation, this is more like sneaking out of a situation. So after the Seven of Swords, the Fool then encounters the Eight of Swords, and the Eight of Swords teaches the Fool about self-imposed restrictions, feeling trapped in your thoughts, and this card is always depicted with an individual who could step out of this, this supposed prison. You can see here that she could step out of this at any point, and it's only through the fact that she's blindfolded that she doesn't realize this. So it is about self-imposed restrictions. After the Eight of Swords, the Fool then encounters the Nine of Swords. Now this Nine of Swords is about, staying up at night, worrying, being in your head too much, and it can also symbolize grief. But this is very much about, being in a state of pain within yourself and being up in your head and fretting, staying up at night, stressing out about things. So after this, the Fool then encounters the Ten of Swords. Now the Ten of Swords is about being done with the situation. As we can see here, the figure is dead and done. There's 10 swords in his back, and he's completely finished with what's going on. You're over a situation. You have all the truth you need here to close the door on a situation that isn't serving you, and like all tens, it is the end of the cycle. So after the Ten of Swords, the Fool then encounters the Page of Swords, and the Page heralds new messages and sharp truths. Now it can also be a naive truth. Somebody, may be speaking with naivety here because the Page is not yet fully formed as an individual. Pages, knights, queens and kings can often represent people. Not always. Sometimes they will just represent energies, but they can often represent people. And if this was a person coming in, this would be a bit of a naive person that, speaking their truth, but maybe doesn't have all the information. But it is, heralding a new message. It could be, a message that it's only part of the message that's coming in. So after the Page of Swords, the Fool then encounters the Knight of Swords. Now, the Knight of Swords comes in very quickly. Often the knights are people. Often they are people coming in, offering something or other. Well, this guy's coming in, sharp and fast, and he's a quick, honest person with a new offer, and he's not necessarily here for a long time. He might be kind of more here for a good time. So this knight comes in very quick paced. Now, after the Knight of Swords, we then meet with the Queen of Swords, and the Queen of Swords teaches the Fool about honesty and about being balanced in her power. You know, she is the feminine representation of this suit, and she can be harsh at times, she can be forthright, but she sits in her power and she's balanced with her honesty and her truth. This person will not be dishonest. This person is coming in and is honest. It is only when cards come out in the reverse that the meanings then shift into a reverse. But coming in upright, this card teaches about honesty and balance, and you know, perhaps can be harsh, but you know, the it is always honest. So after that, the Fool finally gets to meet the King of Swords. Now, he is honest, he has integrity in his power, he has critical thinking, and he is discerning. Much like the Queen, she's also discerning, but this is the more masculine energy of this suit, and the end of the family meetings. So the King talks to the Fool about, you know, being strong in your truth, being, you know, stern in your integrity, and you know, cutting through the nonsense. So that was the Family of Swords. Now, after the Family of Swords, the Fool then encounters the Family of the Wands, or the Rods. So these guys are likened to entertainers, sportsmen. You know, they're very active, enthusiastic, adventurous and physical. They can often also represent sexual and passionate energies, and these relate to the fire signs, being Sagittarius, Leo and Aries. So the first card that the Fool comes across is the Ace of Wands, and the Ace of Wands teaches the Fool about, you know, a new passionate offer, an offer that is in relation to actions coming forward, new beginning. If this is in relation to romance, this is definitely a very passionate offer, and the phallic nature of the wand is sort of indicative of this. Now, after the Ace of Wands, the Fool then encounters the Two of Wands. Now, the Two of Wands can represent, you know, choices to make. Like all twos, it's often about balancing things or making choices and evaluating options in the next step as far as your actions go. So this is about, you know, deciding which way to go, what is the next step and what is the next action. So after the Two of Wands, the Fool then encounters the Three of Wands. Now, the Three of Wands speaks to the Fool about looking to future plans with achievements behind you, and you know, acting with more experience than perhaps the Two of Wands. It can also talk about like actions with others, due to the fact that the 3 is a number that relates to connectivity and interactions. So the 3 teaches the Fool about, you know, making choices in relation to others. So after the Three of Wands, the Fool then encounters the Four of Wands. Now, the Four of Wands is about foundations and commitments, stability and harmony, and can often herald, you know, some sort of union, or, you know, the beginnings of a foundation, perhaps like marriage or something, like actions in relation to foundations. So this is quite a positive card, and it teaches the Fool about, you know, stability and commitment. Now, after the Fool encounters the Four of Wands, he then comes across the Five of Wands. Now, like with most fives, there's like an imbalance, and often it's about conflict. So the Five of Wands here is about physical conflict, active conflict. So this is really, the argument card. And it teaches the Fool about, being at odds and even perhaps physical battle. So after the Five of Wands, the Fool then encounters the Six of Wands. Now, the Six of Wands is riding triumphant after battle, and this guy's pretty balanced, and he teaches the Fool about forward movement, about being balanced, about being victorious, so this guy rides out of battle in a more balanced state. And the sixes do tend to be more about reaching a balanced state. So after the Six of Wands, the Fool then encounters the Seven of Wands. Now, the Seven of Wands teaches the Fool about defensiveness. This guy is still feeling quite defensive after battle, and isn't as balanced as the Six of Wands. He's a little imbalanced, and he's fighting to move forward as opposed to just fluidly moving on. This guy's kind of still in battle mode, and is quite defensive. This is like the defensive card. So after the Seven of Wands, the Fool then encounters the Eight of Wands. Now, the Eight of Wands heralds fast communication or actions and news that changes one's focus. So, these are arrows or rods or wands coming in from the sky, and so it's like unexpected news and things that will promote or will instigate shifts and changes in the actions being taken. So after the Eight of Wands, the Fool then comes across the Nine of Wands. Now, the Nine of Wands teaches the Fool about reflection of hard work being done. So this guy is standing there with his 8 wands behind him and his 1 wand in his hand, and he's looking at the work that he's done, and he's sort of feeling like, I've done all this work. So this is about sort of almost being finished. It's like 9s are often about, reflecting and your inner power, your soul's journey. So the Nine of Wands talks about, reflecting over the actions and the work that you have undertaken. Now, after the Nine of Wands is the Ten of Wands. Now, this guy teaches the Fool about, being burdened, but about to be relieved of these burdens. You can see here that, he's kind of coming to the end of his journey, and he's about to put down these rods, these wands, this heavy burden, and he will be relieved of this heaviness and seeing the end in sight. So the 10s are often about a completion of a cycle, and this one is no different. So after the Ten of Wands, the Fool then comes across the Page of Wands. Again, the Page, is often has naivety involved. Now, the Page of Wands or rods talks about news, perhaps news from afar, good news, and enlightened words, words that will bring, positive actions follow these words. So after the Page of Wands is then the Knight of Wands. Now, if we relate this to a person, this guy is very passionate and sexual, and he's an adventurer. He comes in with action, and his new offer is about action. And so this person will sort of come in and sweep you off your feet. Now, after the Knight of Wands, is the Queen of Wands, and the Queen of Wands talks to the Fool about the warm and compassionate side of this family, and they are all very active and capable, and this queen, she embodies that, being capable and active and quite self-assured there, and she's balanced in her life. The queens of all suits talk about this balance, but they are all quite firm, and this woman is firm, knowing that she has achieved what she's achieved through her actions. So after the Queen of Wands and the feminine side of the Wands family, we then finally get to meet the King of Wands. Now, he is the masculine side of this family, and this is about measured strength. He's optimistic. This whole family is pretty optimistic. And yeah, he's a strong ruler, and he knows his direction, and he knows the actions he has taken, and he knows the actions he needs to take. So he's a strong ruler and a very assured figure. And if he comes up in your spread as a person, this is a very confident, active person. So that was the family of the Wands. Okay, so next up we have the family of the Cups. So this family is likened to the musicians, the poets. It's quite emotional. These characters represent people whose emotions are at the surface of their interactions, and often refers to love and relationships and feelings. They're very emotionally based, and they are a medium-paced family. So the Swords are the fastest paced family, the Rods are the next pace, and these are the medium-paced family as far as speed goes in relation to time. So they are also related to water signs, being Scorpio, Cancer, and Pisces. Now the first card the Fool comes across is the Ace of Cups, and this can usually represent an offer of love or some sort of emotionally driven offer. It is a fresh start. It is a feel-good new beginning. So this is very hopeful, and you can see here the cup is overflowing with love. Now, after the Ace of Cups, the Fool then encounters the Two of Cups. Now, the Two of Cups represents union and partnership and compatibility. So it is about, union with another, and a compatible union with another, and the beginning of love, or, deep friendship and companionship. So this teaches the Fool about the duality, the unity between two people. So after the Two of Cups, the Fool then encounters the Three of Cups. Now the Three of Cups teaches the Fool about socializing, about celebrations, about interactions with others. It can sometimes, comment on a third-party situation if you're doing a reading about relationships, but often it's a very social and happy card about celebrations. Now, after the Three of Cups, the Fool then encounters the Four of Cups. Now, this is about pondering and reflecting over feelings past. This card can speak of mistrust, and it definitely comments on not accepting any new offers, and you can see here there is a cup being offered, and this individual is not accepting that offer, that emotional offer. So this is about, being a little closed off, much like the Four of Swords. It's just about, inactivity and reclusing back into yourself whilst you reevaluate. So after the Four of Cups, the Five of Cups comes. Now, like all the fives, there's conflict involved, and this is more inner conflict, emotional conflict. So this character is looking over the past, over the spilt cups, and is in quite a pessimistic state as he dwells on the spilt milk, as opposed to the full cups that are behind him and still standing up. So this is about focusing on you know, on pains of the past and inner conflict. So after the Five of Cups, the Fool then encounters the Six of Cups. Now this is quite a positive card, and this can often herald, you know, soul connections, innocent connections, and this is why children are depicted here, because it's like that, you know, innocent interactions with people on an emotional level where you are childlike and there aren't agendas and it is very pure. So this heralds like quite a pure emotional interaction. After the Six of Cups, there is the Seven of Cups, and the Seven of Cups teaches the Fool about options and potentially about illusions, about seeing many opportunities, and this can also suggest rose-coloured glasses in some instances, but it is dependent on what other cards are around it. But it's definitely, you know, high in the sky thinking, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. That brings on optimism, and you know, the emotional side of this is very positive, but it can be sort of you know, a little bit out of touch with reality sometimes, and that's why there are you know, characters in these cups that are often from, you know, from fantasy land, but it is about lots of options being available. After the Seven of Cups, the Fool then encounters the Eight of Cups. Now the Eight of Cups is about stepping back from a situation, closing into oneself and letting others go. So emotionally, this is referring to you know, knowing where you are at, knowing what you feel, and sort of leaving things up to others, like not imposing any of your feelings onto a situation, but stepping back and seeing how it unfolds. This is like quite passive, balanced but passive. So that teaches the Fool about stepping back from a situation so as it can unfold without your influence. So after the Eight of Cups, the Nine of Cups comes about. Now this is the happiest guy in the deck. Well, there's another one. She's pretty happy too. We're going to meet her next. But the Nine of Cups is about the, you know, inner balance, inner harmony, inner fulfillment, really being very content and happy within oneself, knowing that, you know, where you're at is where you're supposed to be at. So this is one of the most content cards and very positive cards in the deck. After the Nine of Cups is the Ten of Cups, and this is about, you know, contentment within a community or within your family or within society. So this is like a group joy and fulfillment and contentment. And this is about abundance, and this can sometimes be referred to as the happily ever after card, which, you know, ever after, that's a long time, but it is kind of, it heralds like, you know, good times going on, good times ahead, things being in harmony with the individual and also with those around them. So it's a very happy card. After the Ten of Cups, the Fool then encounters the Page of Cups. Now the Page of Cups, like all the pages, does, you know, suggest a bit of naivety, and so this could be a new offer of love, a new message of love, but we notice the little fish in the cup. That's just reminding us that there is a bit of naivety there, and that, you know, there might be good intentions going on here, but it's an offer that isn't mature and it isn't fully formed. So yeah, the Page of Cups is very positive, but it can be, you know, kind of easy come, easy go, or it can come in fast and then it can burn out just as fast, sort of thing. So this is sort of a light-hearted offer of love. After the Page of Cups comes the Knight of Cups. Now this guy's got a bit more substance. You know, he is teaching the Fool about you know, the sweet talker. He's like Romeo. He comes in and he says the right things, and he knows how to wine, dine, and, you know, impress you. And he really does embody, a very romantic individual who's come in, and his cup doesn't have a fish in it, so he's a little bit more formed in his offer, but it's not to say that it can't sort of be a little bit more like, you know, somebody who loves to love as opposed to somebody who actually knows how to love. So, but it's a very positive thing, and it's a message of of an emotion, somebody who wants to come in and become emotionally involved with you. So it's not as superficial as perhaps the Knight of Swords or the Knight of Wands. This guy does have more substance because he is doing things from an emotional level. So yeah, but he is the Knight. You know, the next one, the Fool, comes across as the Queen. Now she's much more balanced. Like the kings and the queens, they've figured it out. They're balanced. They're not, you know, they're established in themselves. So this is the female aspect of that, and she's emotionally balanced. She's nurturing and she's compassionate. You know, so she is coming in from a place of experience and having, you know, dealt with her emotions and has them in check. In reverse, this can talk about, you know, somebody who is emotionally imbalanced, but upright, she's very balanced and nurturing and, you know, a real loving woman. You know, she is a lover of all things. So after the Queen, we then get to meet the King. And the King of Cups, now, if he comes in and offers you love, this guy is completely balanced, completely stable. He knows where it's at, and he's got a kingdom behind him. So he is the ruler of his emotional self, of his emotional kingdom, and he is stable, caring, protective, and kind. And so he really does. He embodies like, you know, a beautiful individual who is very stable and established in their emotions, and there isn't naivety here. This guy has been through it, and he's learnt how to, you know, keep his emotions in check. So that was the Family of Cups. And then we come to the Family of Pentacles. Now, these guys come in last because they are the slowest moving family in the deck. The Pentacles are slow, measured. They represent monetary and materialistic things, very physically based. I liken them to landowners and developers. And they are very grounded, systematic, and methodical. They relate to the earth signs Taurus, Capricorn, and Virgo. So these guys know all about, the materialistic side of things. So the first card that the Fool encounters, the first character, is the Ace of Pentacles. And the ace, like all aces, represents new beginnings. And this one is considered to be quite a lucky start and a dependable offer. The pentacles in general are all quite dependable. So, this is a very positive card. This is a card, a new offer that you can rely on. So unlike some of the other aces that, you know, might just kind of be like, you know, fast moving through, this one is steady and sturdy offer. So after the Ace of Pentacles, we then have the Two of Pentacles. Now this guy is taking his time and he's playing around with his decision making, and he's just, very light-hearted about weighing up his options. And this is about making a choice. So, like all the twos, it's about balance, it's about weighing up options, and it's about making a choice. But this guy can see what's in front of him, and that's why he's able to take his time as he makes up his options with the pros and cons and figures out what is going to work for him. So after the Two of Pentacles, the Fool then comes across the Three of Pentacles. Now the Three of Pentacles talks about working on the home and setting up foundations. So, you know, we see here there is somebody who's like physically working on this structure, and there's also a couple there that are looking at what's going on. So it can be about, you know, the beginning of a family or a third party situation, and yeah, or like, you know, a business endeavor where there's a third party involved, or a group organization to do with like finances. But yeah, generally it comes back to the home. So it does represent, you know, family-like connections in relation to setting up foundations for forward movement, but, you know, slow and measured, like all these cards in the Pentacles family. So after the Four of Pentacles, the Fool then meets the after the Three of Pentacles, the Fool then meets the Four of Pentacles. Now this guy is about fear. He is sitting there in fear. This is really holds the energy of lack and stagnation and mistrust. This is about having a poverty mentality, and being in fear when it comes to not having enough. You know, so he is frozen in place, trying to hold on to those Four Pentacles. And this is definitely about not trusting in the flow of things, especially in relation to money and wealth. So after the Four of Pentacles, the Fool then meets the Five of Pentacles. Now the Five of Pentacles, again, all fives are about, you know, some sort of conflict. And this is about conflict of, you know, not seeing what's right there in front of you and only focusing on the negative. So, you know, straight after the Four of Pentacles with his fear-based thinking, the Five of Pentacles symbolizes, you know, feeling left out in the cold and not realizing that there is a warm place to be right behind you. That window is right behind them. Even though they're in the snow, they don't realize they can go around the corner and go inside this building and be warm and welcomed, but they're not focusing on that. They're feeling left out and pessimistic, and they're not seeing the good that's right behind them. So after the Five of Pentacles, the Fool then encounters the Six of Pentacles. Now the Six of Pentacles is about generosity and abundance and balance, but it also can sort of talk about a little bit of premature generosity. So, you know, he's got a little bit to share, and this can kind of, you know, this card always reminds me of just not to overshare just yet, because you're still building your fortunes, and it's lovely to be generous, but it's just a warning to, like, perhaps not overextend, because that can then put you out of balance. And we see him with the scales here, and it's reminding you of balance, and it teaches the Fool about, you know, to be balanced with your generosity so as you're able to maintain that stability for yourself, which enables you to continue with generosity. So after the Six of Pentacles, the Fool then encounters the Seven of Pentacles. Now, the Seven of Pentacles teaches the Fool about reflection. You know, this guy is quite melancholy in his reflections, as he has fruit on his tree, he has abundance nearby, but he's too tired and drained to really enjoy this. So he is feeling disheartened, even though he has, you know, he has abundance there. There's a feeling of not lack, but a feeling of overextension. So perhaps, you know, after the Six of Pentacles, this is a guy that perhaps did overextend himself, and now is just feeling a bit exhausted because he hasn't taken that time to rebalance himself energetically. So after the Seven of Pentacles, we then have the Eight of Pentacles. And the Eight of Pentacles teaches the Fool about working on oneself, about projects and self-betterment, and can usually, can often relate to study or, building up your skills so as you can move forward in your endeavors. And like all Pentacles, often relates to something work-related, or materialistic. So after the Eight of Pentacles, the Fool then encounters the Nine of Pentacles. Now, she is pretty happy. She is very content in herself, knowing that she can provide for herself, knowing that she can be free in herself, and she is really in a state of contentment. Much like the Nine of Cups, that guy was pretty content emotionally. This one, she teaches the Fool about being very content materialistically, physically. She's happy in herself, she's happy in her body, she's happy in her own realm. So after the Nine of Pentacles is the Ten of Pentacles. This is about family and fortune. This is all about abundance and contentment and happy times, with everybody having more than enough, everybody being catered for. Materialistically, there is abundance around. So this is not just about the individual, this is about the families, and this is the end of the Pentacles cycle. So after the Ten of Pentacles, we then meet with the Page of Pentacles. Now again, the Page has naivety, but it is a wish granted, and it is a stable offer, and a stable opportunity. So this Page brings with him a message of a stable monetary based opportunity, or an opportunity that can lead to materialistic advancement in some way. And it's a stable offer. All the Pentacles are pretty stable. So after the Page of Pentacles, we then have the Knight of Pentacles. Now, if you are looking for love or marriage or something, and this guy comes up, this is the guy who is stable, who is measured, who is not just here to sweep you off your feet. He wants to get to know you. He wants to align with you properly, and he has his ducks in a row. He is somebody who's looking for commitment, and he's thoughtful and kind, and he has backing behind him. He's not got an empty cup or an empty bank balance. This guy is stable in himself. So this is a very good offer. This Knight is a person who has thought about things before he's done them. So he's not rushing in, he's very slow paced. There is that, though, that could be frustrating with this character, because they are very measured and very practical and very slow paced. After the Knight of Pentacles, we then have the Queen of Pentacles. So she represents the abundant, wise, balanced, centered and calm female side of the Pentacles, very generous woman, and she symbolizes the material, maternal, the female provider, the one that can make sure everybody has what they need. She loves cooking, she loves big family gatherings. She's all about making sure that things are stable. There's no fly-by-night energy here. This is like a stable woman who is there and compassionate and generous and nurturing. And then finally we get to meet the King of Pentacles, and he is the masculine side of this. He is the abundant ruler, and he is centered, he's generous, but he can be a little controlling. But that is how he's got to where he is. The Queen can also be a little controlling too, but that is because they are very much about, the materialistic and the physical world. So it's about, the keeping things in order and doing things in a measured and practical, grounded way. So yeah, the King of Pentacles, he is a very stable character, and this does symbolize somebody of wealth. So that was the Pentacles for everyone. So that was the journey of the Fool. I thank everybody for watching, liking, sharing, and subscribing to our channel, and I look forward to seeing you each month for the monthly readings. Yeah, so the journey of the Fool, this was my interpretation. I learnt this when I was a little girl, and I just wanted to share for anybody who's wanting to learn the tarot, as it's helped me immensely in just keeping the story in my head, so as it's like a quick reference guide. It plays out the story as opposed to having to refer to books or whatnot. So yeah, thank you for watching.